minimum speed as well as a posted maximum speed. On most portions of I-95, the minimum posted speed is 45 miles per hour in standard travel lanes. Driving substantially below that minimum in a through lane is just as unlawful as exceeding the maximum, and it's considerably more hazardous from a traffic flow and crash risk standpoint. New automated sensors capable of identifying vehicles moving below the minimum threshold are now operational in designated stretches. If you're driving in a through travel lane at 35 or 40 miles per hour on a stretch where the minimum is 45, the system will record your plate and a violation notice will be produced. The penalty for a first minimum speed violation begins at $50. This does not apply to the right shoulder lane when it's marked as an emergency breakdown area. It applies to vehicles moving continuously below minimum speed in active because on a 95, particularly in heavily traveled stretches, one motorist going 20 miles per hour below the flow of traffic creates a ripple effect of braking, lane changes, and dangerous speed gaps that is directly tied to rear end and sideswipe collision chains. The new enforcement is specifically intended to address this issue, and the data from the pilot zones indicates it is already working. But it also means that anyone who has ever driven I-95 at 40 miles per hour in the right lane while searching for their exit or managing a vehicle issue has been doing something the system will now cite automatically. The third shift is the rollout of mandatory minimum following distance enforcement in designated high-density corridors. This is the technology that most folks did not even realize existed. Overhead sensor arrays using a mix of radar and infrared measurement are now capable of computing the following distance between consecutive vehicles in the same travel lane in real time. In designated high-density corridors, specifically stretches within 15 miles of a major urban interchange, where the average traffic density surpasses a defined threshold. Holding less than a 2-second following gap behind the vehicle in front of you is now a recordable violation. The system calculates time gap based on measured vehicle speed and the distance between the front bumper of your vehicle and the rear bumper of the vehicle ahead. If that gap drops below 2 seconds and is sustained for more than 4 consecutive seconds, a violation flag is logged against your plate. The penalty for a following distance violation is $100 for a first occurrence and $200 for a subsequent occurrence within a 12-month window. The fourth shift is the activation of distracted driving detection cameras at 23 interchange and ramp positions along the corridor. These cameras employ image recognition technology to detect handheld device use by motorists as they approach and pass through designated interchange areas. The technology was trialed at 3 locations in the corridor over the past 8 months, and it detected handheld device use in an average of 12.4% of vehicles captured during peak hours. These are not interpretive. If the camera system detects a motorist holding a phone or device above the dashboard in a manner consistent with active use, a violation is flagged, and a human reviewer confirms the image before any notice is sent. The penalty for a first distracted driving violation logged at these fixed camera positions is $150 in most corridor states. In states that have enacted enhanced distracted driving penalties, including New York and New Jersey, the penalty can climb as high as $450 for a first offense plus surcharges. The fifth shift is the expansion of the high occupancy vehicle lane enforcement program using overhead license plate readers and occupancy detection sensors. This is especially relevant for motorists who use the HOV lanes during the peak hours when access is restricted to vehicles with 2 or more passengers. The new sensor equipment uses a mix of infrared imaging and machine learning-based occupancy estimation to flag vehicles that appear to have a single occupant while traveling in restricted HOV lanes during enforcement hours. Flagged vehicles are then either confirmed by a reviewing officer via camera or pulled aside by a patrol unit responding to the real-time flag from the system. Penalties for HOV lane violations differ significantly by state along the corridor. In Virginia, it is $125. In Maryland, it is $90. In Delaware and New Jersey, penalties begin at $75. In New York and Connecticut, they begin at $150. All of these penalties apply in addition to any points that may be assessed against the driver's license record or mobile enforcement unit. and the vehicle is flagged for a mandatory pullover at the next available enforcement point. The penalties for overweight commercial vehicles begin at several hundred and can climb into the thousands, depending on the severity of the overweight violation and the state in which it is logged. The relevance for non-commercial motorists is simple. The new system processes commercial vehicles through these weight checks without requiring them to exit the main travel lanes for routine compliance, which means the traffic disruptions that previously came along with commercial vehicle enforcement actions are significantly reduced. The seventh and final shift taking effect tomorrow is the one I want you to pay the closest attention to, because it applies to every single motorist on this corridor, regardless of vehicle type, regardless of how carefully you drive, and regardless of whether you have a spotless driving record going back 20 years. Starting tomorrow, the registration hold enforcement protocol goes live along the entire I-95 corridor. Here's what that means. The license plate recognition equipment that is now operating at every gantry point, every toll plaza, and every activated camera station along the corridor is doing something more than just logging speeds and following distances. It is doing real-time database cross-checks against state motor vehicle registration files. Every time your plate is read, the system checks whether your vehicle registration is current, whether your registration has any outstanding violations linked to it, and whether your insurance verification status is current in states that use electronic insurance verification platforms. Here is the specific rule that is going to produce the most violations. Whether your vehicle registration is current, whether your registration has any outstanding violations linked to it, and whether your insurance verification status is current in states that use electronic insurance verification platforms. Here is the specific rule that is going to produce the most violations. Whether your vehicle registration is current, whether your registration has any...
If you drive on I-95, or if you plan to drive on I-95 at any point in the coming weeks, what I am about to tell you right now is not something you can afford to miss. Starting tomorrow, a wave of new enforcement rules goes fully active along one of the busiest highway corridors in the entire United States. And here is the part that is going to catch millions of drivers completely off guard. The moment that officer makes physical contact with your vehicle, that single touch is already generating evidence that could show up in a courtroom. And if you're just sitting there calmly waiting with your hands on the wheel, you've already missed your first opportunity to protect yourself. Stay with me, because what I'm going to share next is the difference between driving away with a warning and leaving the scene in the back of a police car. The pattern is consistent. Drivers who understand these 4 counter tactics tend to have significantly better outcomes than those who don't. After reviewing hours of body camera footage and court fines, charges, and consequences they never saw coming, here's what you're going to learn. The real reason officers touch your taillight, and how that moment can be used against you later in court. The 7 words that immediately shut down invasive questioning and protect your Fifth Amendment rights. The 5-word phrase that stops illegal searches and forces proper legal procedure. And the Supreme Court rulings that give you full legal backing to do all of this without facing any negative consequences. By the time this is over, you'll have the same knowledge that defense attorneys charge their clients thousands of dollars to explain.